Planine is a work of prose fiction, generally considered to be the first Croatian novel. It was written by Petar Zoranić in 1536 and published posthumously in Venice in 1569. The story tells about a poet's imaginary 7-day journey across Croatian mountains on which he embarks in order to forget his love miseries. But the principal line of the story is patriotic in character. It is composed of 24 chapters, and the introductory contains a dedication to Maciej Matejewicz, the canon of Nin. Plot summary. The hero is the shepherd Zoran, who for 7 years has been suffering from unrequited love towards a maiden Jaga. One morning, wandering around, he arrives to a well called Vodica, having gotten bored with his life. Suddenly from a well a fairy Zorica appears, advising him to go for the mountains to find a particular plant which will cure his love pain. Then on a golden apple he makes a notice of a beautiful fairy grace which transfers him across the seas to Podgorica, where he continues the journey by himself. But soon he runs into a beast, from which grace saves him and leads him by safer pathways. Afterwards, he arrives to the gates of hell, where the fairy tells him a tale on a young maiden Bura. The next day Zoran meets a company of shepherds with whom he spends the next 3 days. On the 5th day, Zoran hears from shepherds a story on the origin of velvet and heads further to the east. There he discovers a small group of shepherds that complains of being attacked by the wolves from eastern sides, which has caused many of the shepherds to flee those areas. The next day Zoran is contacted by a fairy consciousness who directs him to the fairy Dinara. Dinara frees him by her magic powers from his love sufferings. Then Zoran dreams a vision of 4 fairies in their gardens of glory. These are the fairies Latinus, Helnus and Croates, while the first 3 hold in their arms a handful of golden apples. The fairy Croates is poor and makes a complaint on the small number of literary pieces written in folk language. The 6th day Zoran heads for home, but on his way he meets Dinara's daughter, fairy Krk, which drives him across Nin, Skradin and Sebenik down to the mouth of Krka. Thence, fairy grace returns him back to Zaten, the place of his departure. There he finds a grave of Juraj Divnik, the bishop of Nin, and swears to follow the path of Lord's love, meaning and edification. Zoranić lived in times of great danger from invading Ottoman Turks, and that consciousness has inspired his work. It pervaded it with patriotic fervor, against which all poets' personal sufferings, wishes and troubles pale and retreat. It is a pastoral allegorical novel, written mostly in prose but with many passages in verse. Typologically it's a unique piece of its kind in Croatian literature, with motifs borrowed from Latinate and Italian literatures, with clearly discernible influences of Virgil, Ovid, Dante, Boccaccio, Petrarch, Jacopo Sannazaro, as well as domicile writers such as Marko Marulić and Croatian Zasanjovci. Planine are in fact an allegory. They are a dream transferred to the alleged Zoran's path from Nin across the sea to Starograd under the Velbet, and thence up hills over Pakljanica, across the Velbet, and from Lika to Dinara, where he would by the river of Krka settle down to Sebenik and thence by the sea back to Nin. Accompanied by stanzas of patrician and pastoral voice, Zoranić's novel imbuing with life an Arcadian idyll, echoes with sorrowful shepard's tune of dispersed legacy, but it also answers the call of fairy Croates in the gardens of glory. She objurgates Croats who many sapient and lettered are, who thyself and the tongue joyously appraise and decaptar, but are ashamed of the Croatian language and rather prefer to write in a foreign tongue. Zoranić, 3 centuries before the advent of the Illyrian movement, made a defense of the Croatian language, which is one of the most important attributes of this piece.